Yes, sir. Yes, sir. De La Soul's music is finally on to streaming services. It's a great day for hip hop.
Hell yeah. You've been telling me all about it.
Yeah, dude. I've been I've been like so excited for it, and then it was funny when the day finally came this past Friday. I woke up 1 a.m. to listen to the new music like I always do, and I just felt this like bittersweet feeling, and I didn't expect that because I was so pumped for it. But to think that we just lost Dove here in the last few weeks, at first I was down because I was like, man, he's not here to really see what's about to happen. But also I know wherever he's at, he's looking down, and as our generation gets to experience his music for the first time, I'm glad he'll be able to feel really the appreciation that comes for De La Soul from here.
And why is all their music just now getting released?
It's honestly it's a little insight into the business side of how the game really works. So Tommy Boy Records, who had they had De La Soul, they also had Queen Latifah on there. Weirdly enough, and I don't know the exact specifics of it, but essentially in the contract for De La Soul, where most of the labels from the 80s and the 90s were more generalized with their agreements for samples, as in, oh, you can use this sample for the releasing of this song or this album. Tommy Boy with De La Soul, they were almost too specific with it, and when they got the sample clearances, it was actually just, okay, you can use this for physical releases of this. So your CDs, your vinyls, the tapes back then, that was all that they were allowed to use those samples on. So they had to get a whole new agreement and a whole new pass basically by those original record companies to be able to use the samples for digital release.
And for you, what do you think De La Soul did for hip hop music?
Yeah, I think what they especially did was, one, they really brought in samples and used them in a totally different way. They heard the sample not as an accompanying song to the song that they were making, but they heard the sample as one instrumental piece to the entire design of the song. And so using that plus Mace's scratching that he had on there and everything, the production combined with that kind of against the grain of what hip hop was becoming at that time, where they weren't making the political statements that you saw with Public Enemy, the gangster rap lifestyle that you'll see with NWA and Biggie and everything like that. They were really making hip hop music for themselves, kind of like the Beastie Boys were. And thinking about a perfect juxtaposition for me is like, think about Wu-Tang. Like they came from they came from Long Island, but they came from more of like the streets perspective of that. De La Soul, they all came from suburban Long Island. They have the same oddball nature as Wu-Tang, but with their more honed in approach and with the perspective that they had from where they grew up, their commitment to being as authentic to themselves as they could be, that's what really sets them apart.
And it feels like there's always been those two different forms of hip hop. Can you explain for the viewer what exactly that can look like?
Yeah, that's a good point actually. So I think the most palpable example is, Graduation versus Curtis. When 50 Cent was getting ready to release Curtis, the first album after Get Rich or Die Trying, so he is on top of the world. Like he is completely dominating the hip hop world. And 50 Cent was coming off of College Dropout, Late Registration, two historic albums, also on the wave upwards to the top of the charts. When 50 Cent saw that they were both about to release those two albums a week apart, he decided, hey, I want to outsell you to show you that, in his words, like your corny backpack rap style, because Kanye West was wearing the backpack and everything like that. I want to show that I'm going to sell more records than you. The people want where we come from and where I come from. That's what's going to sell more. So 50 Cent was the gritty, got shot 8 times. I really am about this life. I really came from here. And Kanye West was coming from his like, hey, I was in college, but now I'm dropped out. And, I love my mom and everything's cool. And yeah, I'm still I'm still out here with you, but I'm going to create more feel good music that describes my perspective on life as I'm moving forward. So that Graduation Curtis album is like a perfect example of what that is. Really, De La Soul versus NWA and the gangster rap lifestyle of that, that was like the OG version of it. Because when they came out with 3 Feet High and Rising, that kind of frustrated a lot of the hip hop world. And their album Stakes is High is an entire album basically of them saying like, yo, we don't have to be rapping and talking about the things that you are just to be a part of your world. We love hip hop. We love this music. And for us, this is authentic to us. So you had it there, 50 Cent versus Kanye, another great example. And then nowadays you can see it with, Odd Future and everything that they were doing then. Then they were really inspired by Kanye, who was inspired by Pharrell, who was inspired by De La Soul. And you start to see the string theory occur of the two different versions of hip hop, and De La Soul really set into it that backpack style before it was even a thing.